Just take a minute. Look around you. There's history being made. Has been. Will be. How can there not? Just something about those blue skies, high banks and high speed, all coming together in one perfect race. And it'll be here sooner than you think.
Roll Tide and welcome to this Tuesday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover with you in Tuscaloosa. It's great to be with you for the first of two shows coming up this week, as we have a lot to talk about Alabama football, Alabama basketball, Alabama soccer. Really everything is happening right now here at the Capstone. We'll start to go through what's coming up on the show today and our headlines for today, presented by RJ Young. RJ Young is the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. They've given us a smart board to go through everything on the show today, starting with, booth camp highlights that we'll take a look back at from the LSU game. Yes, a tough loss in the end for the Crimson Tide, but there were some good moments all throughout, especially from the radio booth. So we'll check out those booth camp highlights first. Then we'll hear from the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nick Saban, talking about this Crimson Tide football team, where it stands after two losses, and what's still ahead in these three regular season games coming up for the Tide starting this week with Ole Miss. Speaking of the Crimson Tide football team, we always have one-on-one conversations with members of this Alabama team, and this week we get to talk to the first time to Javion Cohen, one of the outstanding offensive linemen for the Crimson Tide, and get his thoughts on his play this season plus the offensive line. Then we're going to be talking basketball the rest of the show, as last night we had a doubleheader at Coleman Coliseum. Alabama women picking up a great win against Alabama A&M, followed by the men picking up a win against Longwood. We had the courtside cam running. I always like calling it the booth camp for basketball anyway, but courtside was rolling, and we have some great highlights coming up from our broadcast of women's and men's basketball. And then we will round out the show by talking Crimson Tide basketball with Richard Hendrix. He and I had a chance to team up on SEC Network Plus for both games last night, so we'll kind of give you a rundown of our thoughts from yesterday's college basketball action as the season has started. Going back to the football team for a moment as we continue going through our headlines for today. Tough loss again against LSU. It was an overtime, a game-winning two-point conversion for the Tigers. Wins it right at the very end. Obviously, if LSU doesn't convert, Alabama wins and be in the driver's seat of the SEC West. But it was LSU picking up the victory 32-31, and it doesn't get any easier for the Crimson Tide once again. Really tall challenge coming up on Saturday against the Ole Miss Rebels. Start time will be 2:30 from Oxford, and we will begin our coverage at 11:30 a.m. across the network. As you see, Alabama 7-2, now two losses in the SEC, both on last-second plays at Tennessee, at LSU. Meanwhile, Ole Miss started 8-0 before the Rebels lost 45-20 against LSU 2 weeks ago. So Lane Kiffin's team playing some really good football once again in 2022. Crimson Tide soccer team, they have dominated 2022, of course, the SEC regular season champions, but they would not pick up the SEC tournament championship as South Carolina won the championship game by a 1-0 score, as Coach Wes Hardell will talk about on our Thursday show. Ran out of gas just a little bit on Sunday in his estimation, but had some great wins even in the tournament prior to that against Mississippi State and Vanderbilt. And we got some very good news on Monday as the Crimson Tide were named the NCAA tournament #1 seed. Now, there are 4 #1 seeds, of course, in the bracket, but Alabama is the national #1 seed, and that means the Crimson Tide are going to get to host for a long time in this tournament as they move along. It all starts coming up this Friday at home in Tuscaloosa against Jackson State at 6 p.m. It's the first time Alabama's ever gone back-to-back in the NCAA tournament, making it there after the win against Clemson last year. Now the Crimson Tide back in it again this season, and for the first time getting to play NCAA tournament soccer at home in Tuscaloosa. And also, as Coach Hart talks about in our interview that will come up on Thursday, Alabama just spent a week on the road in Pensacola, has had a lot of time on the road this season. It's good to be back at home for the most important matches of the year. It was good to be at home. It was good to be at Coleman Coliseum last night as the women's basketball team started its season strong with a 98-51 win against a very good Alabama A&M team, a team that finished second in the SWAC last season and is one of the contenders to win that league coming up this year. Brittany Davis was excellent, 26 points. She knocked down 7 3-pointers in this ball game. Just really found her three-point shot from where it was a season ago. We saw really all the returners play well. Carly Weathers, the freshman, had a solid debut. It just could not have gone much better for Christy Curry and the women's basketball team getting the win against Alabama A&M. Next up for them, a road trip on Thursday to Tulane down in New Orleans. Then the men's basketball team took on the defending Big South champion Longwood Lancers, and it was the Crimson Tide winning 75-54. It was a tough shooting performance from outside the arc for Alabama, but a lot of points in the paint, at least 50 points in the paint for Alabama. Brandon Miller, a huge part of that. What a successful debut for him. Tied for the team lead with 14 points. He also had 13 rebounds, a good double-double for him. Mark Sears, the transfer from Ohio, also had a double-double as he was just fearless throughout a lot of that ball game. Noah Clowney had some big dunks. Nick Pringle, some solid defense. Just all in all, a great performance by the Alabama Crimson Tide. So as we start this edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, we'll go back to Baton Rouge and take a look at some of the best moments from that ball game as we take a look at the booth cam highlights from Baton Rouge and the LSU game this past Saturday.
Looking, pressure coming, pressure still coming, going down is the quarterback. Jaden Daniels rocked down for a loss of 2 on the play. Great job, Will Anderson, but he had company back there. 1st and 10 from there. Quarterback looking, stepping up in the pocket, but he is going to go down. Great pressure for Alabama. Their 2nd sack of the game. Will Anderson and Byron Young met at the quarterback and got him to the turf. Bama 0 for 3 on 3rd downs. Play clock down to 3 as Young gets the snap, dumps it off. Catch made McClellan. A lot of running room. 45 across midfield. Foot race. 35, 30, 25, 20, and he is brought down near the 10-yard line of LSU. 64 yards. McClellan on the drag, and then the burst, and Bama's knocking on the door. Daniels looking, stepping up in the pocket, running to his right. Being chased, he's going to go down. A great play on the backside. Dallas Turner able to run him down. Handoff, though, will go to the right side. Gibbs cuts it up 10, 5, pushing forward, knocked out of bounds inside the 3-yard line. It will be 1st and goal. Bama, a bank first down for the Crimson Tide, deep in LSU territory. Bryce gets the snap, hands it off. Williams ahead. Touchdown, Alabama. First time tonight that Alabama finds pay dirt, and it couldn't have come at a better time. Single setback to the left of Daniels, who's waiting on the snap and gets it. He wants to throw right. He does. Catch is made, and oh goodness, what a hit from Brian Branch. It's enough for a 1st down, but somebody check on Kyron Lacey. I know he hopped up. I know he headed back to the huddle, but he may think he's in Shreveport right now.
Appreciate that chug works right there from Brian Branch. Closes speed from 14 right there. Tell you what, the next time he runs that out route, he might have picked up the 1st down then, but he's going to have second thoughts. That's a decleater all night long.
Knocked a taste of gumbo out of his mouth right there. Gets the snap. Pressure coming from the Tigers. Bryce with plenty of time. Rolls right, throws. Has a man catch made. There's your guy. Gibbs, 1st down. Sliding grab. LSU territory. Huge play in this one. Bama operating from the LSU 41. They've got to get to the 31 to move the chains, but we'll take at least 5 right here to get it to the middle of the field. Play clock is at 5 seconds. Young waiting, gets the snap at 2. Pressure coming up the middle, steps up in the pocket, being corralled, breaks away, throws downfield, has a man, catch made, touchdown Alabama! 41 yards, no flags, Houdini escapes again.
I don't know how he escaped that play right there, looking downfield. Takes the snap, 3-step drop, steps up the pocket, and collapses immediately. He has to escape, running to the left. Defensive lineman for LSU's got him wrapped up. Another guy comes in and keeps his eyes downfield. 2 Alabama wideouts are down the field, and he catches it. Brooks does for the touchdown.
Bryce waiting on the snap, gets it. Pressure coming from the edge, throws a fade left side. Earl dives. Did he make the catch? Yes, he did. What a grab. JoJo Earl inside the 30. They spot him at the 28. It'll be a 46-yard try from the far hash. No breeze to speak of. The snap from Hibbett, the hold from Burnip. Those 2 are up. The kick is up. Does it have enough? It is good! Will Reichard with just enough from 46 yards. And with 21 seconds to go, we are tied at 24. Now he shifts over to the left. Gibbs to the left of Young as he brings Earl in motion left. Fakes the toss. Now he's going to tuck it. He's going to run. Bryce got the first down inside the 15 and down to the 12-yard line. 1st and 10 Alabama from right there. Bryce fake a toss sweep.
Fakes the toss sweep, and then he's got the slot receiver running down the middle of the field. I think it was Burton. So goes to the left, starts rolling left. He pulls up. Burton's not there, and then he just takes off, picks it up with his feet.
Young stepping up to the line of scrimmage with a play clock now down to 10. There is no game clock. We're in overtime. 7 on the play clock. 5, 4. Gets the snap at 3. Looking, throwing. Nobody there. Pass interference is called. That's why Brooks wasn't there. He got tackled on the play by Sage Ryan, the nickelback for LSU, and a fresh set of downs upcoming for Alabama. At 6. 4 on the play clock. Bringing a man in motion. Burton at 2. They hand it off. Going forward. Did he get in? Touchdown, Alabama. Roydell will.
And those were the booth cam highlights from LSU. As we mentioned before, some good moments for the Crimson Tide this past Saturday against the Baton Rouge LSU Tigers, but ultimately it was LSU pulling it out in the end with the touchdown and then the 2-point conversion to win 32-31 in overtime. So this Crimson Tide team now with 2 losses on the season. Time to move forward, though, getting ready for the Ole Miss Rebels coming up this Saturday in Oxford. And on Monday, it was head coach Nick Saban meeting with the media to start getting ready for Ole Miss week and kind of give us a look at where Alabama stands at this point in the season. Here is Coach's checklist from Coach Saban's press conference on Monday.
I think the number one thing we want to focus on is, I know people have kind of written us off to some degree, but at the same time, I think we have a lot of pride as an organization. I think we need to get focused on, what it takes to win games. Play the game, win the game, prepare for the game. Know you're going to go into the game with confidence and understanding of what you need to do to be able to have success at your position, which is something that we need to do a better job of as coaches, so the players feel that way in the game. I think, one of the things, we've had 4 games that have come down basically to the last play of the game. We won 2 of them, we lost 2 of them by a total of 4 points, and we didn't execute down the stretch the way we need to. So I don't know what that is, but we got to get away from that because great players, great competitors, they rise to the occasion and make the plays they need to make in the critical times in the game when your best is needed. And certainly we need to do a better job of that. I think it's a challenge for all of us to, have pride. We're going to play a good team this week, and I'm sure they're going to want to, put up on their mantle, we beat Alabama too. So it's just a matter of, whether we're going to allow that to happen or we're going to go do everything we can to avoid it. Because, Ole Miss has a really good team. Lane's done a great job there. They're one of the best running teams in the country. They won 8 games. They're really, really good all the way around. They play good on defense. They're hard to score on. They've got really good players, good running backs, good receivers, quarterbacks playing well for them. They're aggressive on defense. And they play good on special teams. So this is a really good team. They wouldn't have won 8 games. They wouldn't be 8-1 now if they weren't a really good team. So we got to get ready for the challenge. Look, there's things that we need to do better in every part of our organization. I'm not going to analyze somebody publicly, good, bad, or indifferent. We're all working hard together. We're all responsible for, what we do. Do we need to play better on both sides of the ball? Absolutely. We got to play better up front. We got to make less mistakes, overall organizationally. And there's not a coach or a player in this organization that can't do things better, to help our players have a better chance to be successful. And I think the players themselves also have to be accountable and go out there and do things that they're supposed to do, especially in critical times in the game. Well, first of all, I don't think it's really fair to the team to create the kind of expectations that get created, for the team before they ever have a body of work. but that's kind of the nature of the beast in this day and age. I think being able to handle that, not putting pressure on yourself to try to live up to that expectation, sort of creates a lot of anxiety in some cases. You put pressure on yourself, whatever it is, which means you're really focused on outcomes, not process. And I think that's the biggest thing that we got to get our players back to do. When I say you got to focus on what it takes to win and enjoy winning, that's what I'm talking about. Not the pressure to win and then the relief when you win, rather than the joy that you won. There's a difference in all that. And I think, I'm not blaming anybody for it. It is what it is. But you got to be able to handle that and not let it affect you. And I've done, I guess, a pretty average job of getting our players out of that mode. You know, the pyramid downstairs doesn't say win the SEC championship. It doesn't say win the national championship. It says be a champion. And these are the things that you have to do to be a champion. And if you can do those things, you have a chance to win a championship. All right, so if your focus is on the championship, then are you really focused on doing the things you need to do to get there? And I would say that's the thing that we need to do a better job of focusing on.
Crimson Drive is driven by NASCAR, and don't miss out on the event of a lifetime. The Daytona 500 kicks off the NASCAR regular season on February 19th, 2023. Be there and experience the energy, excitement, and power as drivers battle it out in the 65th running of the Great American Race. Purchase your tickets today at DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com. We continue on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, with a one-on-one conversation with a member of the Crimson Tide football team. And this week, we're going to the line of scrimmage. Coming up on Thursday, we'll chat with Byron Young, a defensive lineman for the Crimson Tide. But today, we have a conversation with Javion Cohen, who has emerged as a starter on Alabama's offensive line. And he joins us to assess his play so far this season and what the Crimson Tide can do moving forward. Javion, first of all, how have you felt about your play this season?
It's been fine. You know, of course, it was not everything that I wanted it to be. Giving up a couple sacks as a group, you know what I'm saying? It's not just about me individually, but we could do better, try to run the ball better, trying to stay focused on the next week.
What are some steps you guys have taken to grow as the season's gone along together as a unit on this offensive line?
Just keeping it positive and keeping the main thing. Playing physical, most definitely, first and foremost, and just make sure we watch extra film every day after practice and just getting out our opponents and breaking down everything that we need to.
What was the message from Coach Saban after the LSU game?
Continue to fight. Of course, it didn't end the way we wanted to, but it's not going to stop us. It's still a season to be played, and you just got to finish each and every game.
How much fun is it to block for Bryce Young, especially on some of those crazy plays where he's moving the pocket all over the place? You guys give him a good pocket, but he seems like he can move all over.
He's a magician. It's crazy to watch sometimes, but no, it's definitely fun, you know, especially when you have a leader like him leading your offense, and you just want to make sure that you keep him upright all the time.
There have been some other leaders on this offense as the season's gone along.
Darian Dalcourt, for sure. Jameer Gibbs is somebody who leads, especially by example, most definitely. Myself included. Emil Ekiyor, of course, you know, is a fifth-year senior. He comes back, and everybody has been trying to make a collective effort to push everybody forward.
Now Alabama gets ready to go back on the road against Ole Miss. So just what's the challenge of playing in a road environment and the crowd noise you've had to deal with all throughout the year?
Well, yeah, it's always going to be a challenge when you're on the road and, you know, your back's against the wall. It's just you and the other team in there. But we try to focus on what we need to get done, you know, reading our keys and executing the plays that are best of our ability.
And have you learned much about the Ole Miss defense so far? We know they have a stout defensive line.
Yes, we've watched them a couple times over the year. I know J.J. Peke's transferred from Oregon, somebody who's really strong up front. Have a great defense, great coaches, and their technique sound as well. So we're just going to try to put our best effort forward.
Javion, thank you for joining us. Roll Tide.
Just take a minute. Look around you. There's history being made. Has been, will be. And it'll be here sooner than you think.
Well, that's a look at football for this show. Now we're going to shift gears to basketball the rest of the way here on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, because last night was a very busy night at Coleman Coliseum. It was opening night in college basketball, and we had a doubleheader in Tuscaloosa. The Alabama women's team took on Alabama A&M. The men's team faced off against Longwood. So two really good matchups, and coming up this season all throughout the year on the Crimson Tide Sports Network social media outlets like Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, you'll be able to watch courtside cams of Alabama basketball games. Now, of course, we're not showing you the game on the floor. We're showing you the broadcasters calling the game. And so we had that for first the women's game with Gray Robertson filling in for me on the radio side for Alabama women's basketball. And then Chris Stewart and Brian Passink, along with Tom Stipe. He'll be creeping back in out of the frame every now and then. Of course, calling Crimson Tide men's basketball. But it was just so good to be back inside Coleman Coliseum last night as we take a look at our courtside cams from two Alabama victories to start the season.
Out to Mingo Young, deep in the left corner. She drives. Now she kicks to Davis. Left wing three up. Left wing three good. First of the season, certainly not the last for Brittany Davis. Up ahead to Shanice Reed. Now give to Cody at the free throw line. She'll drive left side. Her shot was rejected by Jada Rice. Backside rebound by Davis, and here she comes. Brittany Davis looking to go all the way. She will, or her layup falls down. I don't know how she did that going up against essentially three defenders. Up comes McQueen. She's been impressive this evening as well. Give to Davis. Oh, man, she's wide open. Three up and good. You cannot give Brittany Davis that much space. She will say thank you very much and knock it down. Mingo Young with the screen from Cunningham will drive, kick, Weathers, wide open, left corner. Three up, three good. How about that debut for Carly Weathers? Here comes Barker. She's got an alley all the way to the rack. Sarah Ashley Barker slicing and dicing. Bergen throws it in, and it's stolen by Barker. Sarah Ashley Barker all the way, layup good, and one. What a fourth quarter for Sarah Ashley Barker. And she'll head to the free throw line for the old-fashioned three-point play. Weathers is there. She uses the screen, does McQueen. Kick out Barker, right side three up. That one is short, but McQueen is there with the board. She'll kick out Weathers, left side three up. That one's good. Welcome to Tuscaloosa, Carly Weathers. What a night. 13 points for the freshman, the only one on the roster. We said it in the intro. There is only one player on this Alabama roster currently not listed as an upperclassman. That player is Carly Weathers, who's got 13 points tonight. That's the second most for Alabama. Coach, when you've got a roster where all but one are upperclassmen, sometimes it's the underclassman who really shines, and it was Carly Weathers who had a phenomenal night. What did you see from her in her first career game?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a little unusual for a freshman to look that comfortable. But she just continues every day to get better. You know, I thought at times, too, I mean, was exactly where she was supposed to be on the defensive end and the 4 steals. But, you know, she just can make a shot. You got to guard her.
He will flip it ahead to Burnett. Namari back to the big fella. In the freight train down the middle of the lane. Throws it home. Charles Bediako making it 4-3 Bama.
That's what Alabama wants to do. Get stops and run the floor. And the 7-footer able to run. Namari Burnett rewards him. And Bama gets the easy dunk.
Now in transition. Clowney the flush. Count it. And he is fouled. Laterra shooting a fall away. Misses the iron. Rebound claimed up high by the Tide's Nick Pringle. A JUCO player who was a great one last year at that level. Now with the Tide.
First of all, Nick Pringle on that rebound.
Yeah.
He got the rebound, and then he kept on rising.
Yeah.
What an athletic player. And that starts the Alabama fast break.
Miller back in with it, top of the arc now. Miller off the bounce, 17-footer bottom.
Nate Oates doesn't love mid-range jumpers unless it's Brandon Miller doing that, because he can make them. It's all about percentages, and Brandon Miller's so smooth, takes what the defense gives him, pulls up from 17 and knocks it down.
Noah got caught in the air but found a man in the corner. Griffin, three, bottom. Rylan Griffin, the first 3 of the season for the Crimson Tide. He has got 7 points, and Alabama has a 24-12 lead over Longwood. Lancers with the basketball. Going inside, Wade feeds it off, and a block down low by Clowney, but the rebound secured initially by Longwood, and then a steal from Griffin, who lays it in for 2.
Great job on both ends by Rylan Griffin. Not able to throw down the dunk, gets the lay-in, but knocks the 3 down. Bama finally gets a bank first 3.
Miller Throwing it down low, great feed. Bediako, pump fake, gives it off. The dunk for two, a beauty by Clowney.
Well, one of two could have dunked that. Charles could have gone up and thrown it down, but the unselfish play and the back cut, Noah Clowney recognizing a lane to the basket, takes the feed and throws it down.
Puts it up with the left hand, no good. Sears, smallest man on the floor, clears it for the Tide, and he'll push it the other way. Between the legs with the dribble, down the lane, the kick to Clowney, near side three, bottom. 20-point lead for Alabama, their biggest. They can get it above that as the Tide claims a miss. They'll throw a lob and the lay-in for two by Miller. Great assist again from Sears, and Alabama leads it 70-48.
Get stops, can get out and run. Good defensive play by Charles Bediako. That started the Bama fast break, and Mark Sears, again with excellent vision, finds Brandon Miller.
Griffin swings it in the corner. Catch and shoot three. Sears, bottom. Bama trying to add a little icing to the cake. Sears down the lane. Left-handed shot, no. Tip, no good. Griffin. Rebound secured initially by Longwood, but Bediako gets the steal. Sears, three, no. Rebound, yes, Brandon Miller.
Alabama has been dominant on the glass. Another second chance opportunity. Brandon Miller hasn't shot it well, but showing you some athleticism right there as he throws it down.
Caught it, flushed it, one motion. 1:05 to go, and Bama's going to be 1-0. The 19th ranked team in America, up by 25 at home.
Isn't the courtside cam a lot of fun? Again, we'll have that all throughout the season for home games for women's and men's basketball. The next women's game won't be until the very end of the month. A lot of time on the road coming up for Crimson Tide women's basketball, but you will be able to see a courtside cam on Friday night when Alabama takes on Liberty at 7 o'clock back at Coleman Coliseum. Last night, it was Richard Hendrix working along with me on the SEC Network Plus for the television broadcast of both games in Alabama women's and men's basketballs. And after we saw all the games and really saw some great wins for the Crimson Tide, we had a chance to chat on the floor as we talked about two good wins for Alabama to start the season. Here's a new segment we're calling Hoops with Hendrix. And welcome back to Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover. Now pleased to be joined by SEC Network basketball analyst Richard Hendrix. He was on the call, along with somebody else, for a couple of games tonight at Coleman Coliseum as Alabama women's basketball, men's basketball starts with a victory in both cases. But first of all, Richard, how great was it to just be back in here and feel the energy of Coleman Coliseum again?
Great energy here this evening in the basketball, to get back in the gym. Both teams came out with big-time performances, a lot to do with the crowd.
Yeah, a lot of energy for sure. Alabama women's basketball, let's talk about them first against Alabama A&M, starting the season with a 98-51 win. Brittany Davis, no surprise, led the way with 26 points.
Outstanding performance by Brittany Davis. You know, she's a prolific shooter. She picked up right where she left off last season. The story with this team, they have all the returning starters back from last season, but adding a lot of newcomers. They all seem to mesh very, very well in the first game.
Who were some of those newcomers that impressed you?
Well, of course, you have Loya McLean, who was able to get downhill with her dynamic play. Sarah Ashley Barker was a very, very dynamic player who was able to fight and find her rhythm early on, coming over from Georgia. But just to name a few, really, really good players to execute the game plan. When you have to add players to a team that already has 95% of the scoring returning, it can be difficult, but they seem to do it seamlessly.
Certainly saw that. And again, Brittany Davis, 7 3-pointers in this ball game. She once again was feeling her shot, but it seems like she did more defensively, we've seen.
She did. She's added some things to her game. Defensively, she's playing with a lot more effort. Offensively, normally a strong left-hand driver has added the right hand to her game, shooting in the mid-range, and the always deadly three-pointer was, of course, on tonight with 7 of them.
So that was good to see for the Crimson Tide women's basketball to start, and then the men's basketball team ranked 20th in the country, and we knew going into this matchup against Longwood this would be a tough challenge.
Yes, it would. Longwood, very, very good team from last season, Big South Conference champs. They would be battle-tested, of course, but Alabama was able to impose their will with their physicality and athleticism. They had a little bit more depth and size. That seemed to be the factor tonight.
75-54 was the final score of the men's game, and for the men, it were newcomers all over the place. Brandon Miller leads the way with a double-double.
And the freshmen all the way around the board. Brandon Miller, Noah Clowney coming through with some big-time athletic plays from the inside and the outside. Jaden Bradley joined the show later on. And, of course, we have also the guard Rylan Griffin. Big-time energetic plays in the passing lane, knocking down three-pointers all over the court. A freshman-led group right now. It's going to be fun to watch them grow.
The size and the length, we heard about it from Coach Oates all summer long. Were you impressed by it, seeing it in person for the first time?
I was, especially with so much youth that they have. They're still a little bit raw. They have a lot to kind of work out. They also have to figure out how to play with the guards. Mark Seals is going to be coming into his own. Of course, eventually, Javion Quinterly will be returning to the roster. They have a talented team. They have to improve in many areas, but the talent is going to be just as good as anyone in the country.
Well, coming up next, it'll be Alabama against Liberty in men's basketball on Friday. Speaking of the women's team, they'll be on the road at Tulane coming up on Thursday. So just as we wrap things up, Richard, what are some final steps for both of these teams to try and make the rest of this week?
Well, both of these teams are going to have to continue to improve defensively. It's early on in the season. They played an opponent that they were both much better than physically and athletically, but they'll have to continue to work on their team defense, rotations, transition defense, as well as offensively better ball movement, and for the men's team to knock down open three-pointers. If they can do that and find quality shots and get open shots and knock them down and make them pay, then this team can reach the goals that they want to have.
Hardest working man in show business, Richard Hendrix, after calling back-to-back games, Alabama women's and men's basketball. Thank you for joining us on Crimson Drive. Roll Tide.
Always a pleasure with you, Roger. Always a pleasure.
Thanks to Richard Hendrix for hanging around and talking some basketball after two great wins for the Crimson Tide last night to begin the college basketball season. As we mentioned, later this week, we've got more basketball ahead. We're still gearing up for football against Ole Miss. It's a perfect time to take a look at our Wickles Weekend Update brought to you by Wickles Pickles. They are wickedly delicious. We have the pickle chips. We have the okra, always with us on set. Always delicious. Find out more at wickles.com. Let's take a look at what's coming up across the Crimson Tide Sports Network this week. Coming up on Thursday, we'll be back at 2 o'clock for another edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCARs. We'll have a one-on-one conversation with Byron Young, a defensive lineman for the Crimson Tide. Plus, we'll hear from Chris Stewart. We'll get a scouting report on Ole Miss from their broadcaster, David Kellum. And also, Wes Hart, head coach of the Crimson Tide soccer team, will be along to preview the NCAA tournament. Then after that, we will have head coach and the Nick Saban show starting at 6:30. Right before that, we will have women's basketball starting on the road at Tulane, as I mentioned. So we'll have the call from New Orleans of that ball game as Christy Curry's team tries to go 2-0. On Friday, you can take a look back, at everything that's coming up on the network, whether this week on CTSN Podcast, featuring clips from all the interviews we've had. Then that night, it will be another edition of Alabama men's basketball against Liberty at 7 o'clock. Our radio coverage will start at 6, and we will have the courtside cam available as well on all of our social media outlets, so make sure you check that out for Alabama against Liberty. Then on Saturday, we'll make the trip to Oxford, Mississippi for Alabama against Ole Miss, a really big SEC West showdown coming up with the Rebels. Kickoff set for 2:30 p.m. Central. We will hit the radio at 11:30 a.m. from Vaught Hemingway Stadium. Sunday, we'll take a look back at everything from the football game and the Nick Saban television show, as well as Tide TV this week. And then on Monday night, we'll be back at Baumhower's Victory Grill in Vestavia Hills for Crimson Tide Rewind. We did have an edition of the show last night with Todd Robbins filling in for me, along with Corey Reamer, but we can't wait to be back there coming up Monday to talk about everything going on with Crimson Tide Athletics. Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, and the 65th anniversary of the Daytona 500 is just around the corner. Don't miss out on the action taking place on February 19th, 2023. Purchase your tickets today at DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com. Congratulations to the Cup Series champion Joey Logano, able to clinch that with a win in Phoenix this past Sunday. It's hard to believe the NASCAR season has come to a close the day before the college basketball season starts, and we are going to be talking a lot of basketball coming up here on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, as well as Crimson Tide football. Still 3 key games left in the regular season for the Crimson Tide football team. It's going to wrap up this edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Going to say a big thank you to Javion Cohen for joining us, as well as all the different basketball content we've had, Coach's Checklist, the Booth Cam highlights, a really busy edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR on this Tuesday. We'll be back coming up on Thursday again at 2 p.m. Thanks as well to our video producer, Ethan Carabin, putting this show together. Thanks to all of you for watching. This is Roger Hoover from Tuscaloosa saying thank you again and have a great start to your week. Roll Tide, everyone.